Dreaming of blissful summer days and creamy popsicles? Capture sun-drenched memories with the Orange Vanilla Dream Hydration Multiplier from Liquid IV. Just one stick and 16 ounces of water can help hydrate you better than water alone. Live your summer dream with Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code INDULGE20 at checkout.
Hey everybody, I'm Mikey Andersen, and this is Fantasy Avenue, where each week we talk about everything you need to know in the world of fantasy football. Hello and welcome back to Fantasy Avenue, your road to fantasy football victory. I am Mikey Andersen, and welcome to the final episode of the fantasy football regular season here at Fantasy Avenue. It was a great season. You know, we got a little bit to talk about. We're gonna look back at this season. I'm gonna talk about stuff from the fantasy championship week and my top 5 moments from the season in general. And then that'll be it. We'll have kind of a shorter episode, right? Not a lot to look to for next week. And then we'll see what happens. I have a few ideas in mind. I really want to get some of my friends together, have them make brackets, so there's something that we're coming back to over the playoffs, right? A bracket setup. And I just look and see, how the games went in terms of how we're picking and who we think's going to win, and just fantasy, like relevant, big name, big things, big catches, right? Just talk about football as the playoffs go on. And then once that'll be what I do for the playoffs. Once the playoffs finish up, we'll get into probably like once every 2-week episodes, a little bit more, right? We'll kind of have a break over spring. We'll just talk about NFL relevant news in terms of fantasy football. I'm still working out what I'm going to do over the spring as we get into next fantasy football season. Again, if you don't already follow it, the fantasy football Instagram at the Fantasy Avenue podcast. DM me if you have any suggestions for what we do on as segments, and I'll be looking at other fantasy football podcasts too. And just seeing kind of what they do, because I'm new to this. I've never done a fantasy football season, an off season. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna figure out just kind of what we say, how we say it, whatever. But it should be fun. I'm excited. I'm excited for this week. Excited for my top 5 moment review. Excited to talk about the fantasy playoffs that just finished up. I hope everybody's fantasy playoffs went super well. There was some big things. We'll get into it. That Bills, I want to talk about DeMar. It's great. This could be a very different segment if DeMar Hamlin didn't recover from his injury, but he did. So I just want to take a moment to just thank everybody, right? Oh, wait, hold up. The applause is not working. Oh, that's the crickets. No, we don't want that right now. Yeah. Woo! Oh yeah, thank you guys. Thank you DeMar Hamlin for rising up. That was awesome. An awesome moment last Sunday. The Bills dominated. He's been released from the hospital. It's awesome. Super great. The only negative part about it, honestly, at this point, is that the fantasy football championship week kind of got screwed. And I'll talk about that a little bit. There are some major problems with, in my opinion, how they dealt with it. In terms of the fantasy football, that is the biggest week of the whole season. There's got to be a way than just giving all these people zeros. There's got to be a way to maybe change your lineup or do something or carry over to next week. If you have Joe Burrow, maybe you should be able to change out with your bench quarterback, because what happened isn't fair in terms of fantasy games. It was a hard situation. There's not you can't be angry at the situation necessarily because it was a terrible thing that happened. But it's a little frustrating how the fantasy apps decided to deal with it, just giving people zeros with no way to change, no way to go into next week. It's a rough ending of the season. Hopefully something that never ever happens again in any game, let alone the fantasy football championships. But it was weird, very weird. Overall, I'll talk about my leagues. In my main league, I got kind of screwed by the Broncos defense 2 weeks prior. I got negative points. I would have ended up winning my league in terms of how many points I scored this week, but I still ended with a good 3rd place, and I'm happy about that. We go to my next league. This is the league that unfortunately, I've lost by 1 point 4 times this season. That kicked me out of the playoffs, and that caused me to lose last week in the consolation game. I was able to bring home the W this week, so I did not get last place in the league, thankfully. But that is something about fantasy football. There's luck, there is skill, there's everything in between. There's a lot of luck. NFL players are super all over the place. I mean, let's just talk about my top 2 players, right? Jalen Hurts didn't play, so I had Trevor Lawrence as my starting quarterback, put up 4.48 points. Literally his worst game of the season. Had not played like that at all. And then my next player in line, Austin Eckler, drops a 40 bomb. So there's inconsistencies, there's luck. It's what happens. 7th place, a 3rd place, okay. Now we get to the game that I'm talking about. A big win in the championship by 30 points to give me my win of the season. I got 4 leagues. I was able to win one of them, so I'm happy about that. The luck rolled my way, and players that I got off the waivers like Justin Fields, players that I drafted late and got good value like A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson turned out to be one of my MVPs. Tony Pollard and Jamal Williams. That's honestly what it is. The waiver wire and late round selections can make or break a team. If I'm looking at who like consistently carried this team, big names, I'm looking at Justin Fields, Tony Pollard, and Jamal Williams. There are other guys obviously like Jay Jettis, but those 3 guys I picked off waivers or late round. Picked up Jamal Williams in the last round of the draft, Tony Pollard and Justin Fields off waivers, and they ended up basically carrying me through the final 6 or 7 weeks of the season and into the fantasy football Super Bowl championship, which I took a win in. It's awesome. Love to see that. And then in my final league, it was okay. I didn't end up getting the win in the championship. What happens, but I was able to get a 2nd place. So if you want some, come on, listen to Fantasy Avenue, okay? Fantasy Avenue is here for you. It's all right, bro. Finish. I got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 7th. 7th, whatever. Ignore that. I'm averaging about a 3rd place. Not bad. If we ignore the 7th, I'm averaging a solid 2nd into the fantasy championships. I should have been in the fantasy championships in 3 of my leagues. Into them in 2. Gets a win. That's an awesome season, and I'm super happy about it. What happens. It was a weird ending. Could have ended a lot differently, but I'm happy. It was a good fantasy football season. Now, I'm going to talk about my top 5 moments. I want to say, again, I'm excited to see kind of what we do. As the playoffs go on, I'll kind of just talk about the playoff scenarios, and then later in line we'll get into the players. But right now, before I even forget, I don't know if I'm going to forget, this is going to be a bit of a short episode. Thank you for everybody who has listened to any of the podcasts this year. This is my first year ever doing a podcast. I don't write anything down. I just improvise it. Shout out to Adam. He set me up with this super sweet situation. He basically mentored me in podcasts. Awesome. I'm so grateful for everything that's been going on and everybody that's been listening. It's super cool. It's super cool that my first year of doing anything like this turned into something that was this big a deal. I spiked at about 580 listens in an episode. Now, my general episodes can go up and down. They've gone as low as 15 and as high as about 580. It's the highs and lows, and we get that. Consistent audiences will build into more like that. But just showing like that moment where I logged on to my account that kind of tracks that, and I saw that many listens, it's incredible. One of the most exciting like moments that's happened to me in a long time in terms of just like, wow, like this is possible, and I can do it. I can do it. It's possible to gain. It's going to be hard. It's going to take. It took Adam. Adam has his own podcast. I don't know. I guess I'll shout him out. The Joe Rogan Universe Review. Joe Rogan Review, I think it's called. Something like that. Rogan Review. Anyway, he's got a huge podcast. He started the same way I did, but like with way less teaching, just in his basement doing it or whatever, something like that. I don't know the exact story, but he started first 5 years. There was no really consistency. It took him time. Now he has like one of the biggest podcasts in the U.S., like a top 100 U.S. podcast, top 100 world podcast in terms of downloads. The 1% of the 1%. It's awesome. I was inspired to be like that, and I'm super excited that there was a tiny glimpse into the gains that I could have. So all that out of the way, that's kind of my just ending episode thing, and I said it right in the middle. Let's get into my top 5 fantasy moments of the season, and then I'll log out. I'll be back hopefully next week or the following week with the playoffs, with the brackets. But for now, that's it. There's no specific order, I don't think, but I'll put it in. It's not super thought about in terms of is this better, is this worse, but I'll put it in a top 5. At my number 5, it's not really a great moment for me, but I'm gonna go with the good luck, bad luck of fantasy football. Super evident this year in terms of my game scores and my overall game. Losing by so much, by so little, so much, and also winning. I've won a game by 0.02, so whatever. 2 yards, less than a catch. It's crazy. The ups and downs are crazy. The players are crazy. Injuries are crazy. It was just a crazy year. I just think it's so fun. It makes the game so fun. And then on top of that, the Bills Bengals game. That's a luck thing, right? And we've never seen anything like that in fantasy football. There's just unpredictableness. There's craziness. It's weird. It's a weird way to end my season, but I'm here for it. It's not a top moment that happened, but it is a top moment that we all had to deal with a fantasy football playoff like that. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. At my number 4, I'm gonna have to go with my friend Jackson Dorr. Don't know if he listened to the podcast, but he ended up trading my other friend Cole a sandwich and about $10 for his whole team, and then would end up trading for another guy's team. Basically used a sandwich to build a super team. It's funny. It's a league I ended up getting second to Jackson in. I believe I should have won the league, I believe that was my league. I believe I had the best team before the trades. But whatever. The trades are funny. There's only so much serious you can take. If a guy is able to negotiate his way to give somebody a sandwich in terms for winning a fantasy football league, freaking send me the directions to the bagel place. I'd get every single person a bagel just so you can trade me your players. I'm fine with that. I will spend $1 on everyone in my league to win my league because it's funny and it's fun and it brings joy. I don't think it's really cool to do that. Whatever. But maybe I don't think paying guys is that cool. I'll pay you $10 to give you my players. That's kind of lame. But if you can figure out a way to give your friend a sandwich, it's just something about that's just awesome. I don't know why I like that so much. It's just funny. My number 4, I don't know. It's whatever. At my number 3, I'll keep this a little short, but I've already said it. That 580 episode, awesome. I don't even know which one it was. It was just some random thing. Funny, it actually came after I went to the college game day thing at MSU, which is I live in Bozeman. Maybe a coincidence, maybe not, but I had my sign on TV for 3 hours because I was in a prime spot with the Fantasy Avenue logo. 2 million people watched that broadcast. 500 of them look up my podcast, maybe? I don't know. I don't know why I went viral, but I did. So whatever. I can't see if those people came there from that or whatever, but I saw 500 people. So it's crazy. It's just a funny thing. I don't even know if I ever said that might be a reason why I spiked so high. It was that thing. But yeah, a top moment. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember that forever. My number 2, let's get to strictly fantasy for these last 2. I've talked about them already a little bit as well, but the massive jump of Jamal Williams and Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard having 3 weeks in a 4-week span over 40 points. Incredible. Coming from a role that I kind of thought, he was one of my sleeper picks at the start of the season and that I talked about. If the Cowboys gave him a bigger role, he could outshine Zeke and just show his pure athleticism, and he did. When he got the bigger roles, when Zeke was out or when he just got the rock, he proved that he was a baller, and he proved that, it's going to be an inconsistent pick next year in terms of how the Cowboys are going to use him, right? It's scary because you never know for sure, especially with the Cowboys because they're all over the place. But he's a top running back pick. He finished this fantasy year the number 7 ranked running back. I'll probably have him 10 to 12. There's a little bit of downside, but there's also a big upside, and he's a beast. And then Jamal Williams came out of nowhere, came into that team as a RB2 behind DeAndre Swift, assumingly, has been an RB2 his whole career behind Aaron Jones on the Packers. He came in, literally led the NFL in rushing touchdowns, broke Barry Sanders' record of franchise rushing touchdowns on the Lions. His energy is so funny. I guarantee everybody who's watching this podcast has seen the clips on Instagram stuff of him wearing some Naruto, anime thing, talking about Pokemon, crying and then being like, "Don't let these tears fool you. I'm a dog." He's just hilarious. He's a hilarious guy, and it's so funny that this random guy who looks like he would just be like a college kid sitting in his basement and playing games on his computer is one of the greatest athletes in the U.S. right now and one of the most dominating athletes in the last year. That's so sick, and I think it's just so funny how he rose from nothing in fantasy and he rose from basically nothing in the season. No one saw that coming, and it's awesome. And my final thing, there's a bit of a personal note, but I've got to shout out Joe Mixon, his crazy performance let me look for sure. My very first Instagram post on the Fantasy Avenue Instagram for a player highlight, fantasy performance of the year, the Week 9 matchup, where the Bengals score 42 on the Panthers, and Joe Mixon, puts up 58 points. One of the highest fantasy performances ever. A little sentimental to me because I have him in multiple leagues, and it was my first Instagram post. He scores 5 total touchdowns. It's something that like everybody will remember because of how many points. I'm pretty sure in a PPR league, it's like the 5th highest fantasy game in history. It's incredible. We've seen that 4 other times in 4 other seasons. That's counting all the way back like 50 years ago, because they can contribute, or they can, even though fantasy football didn't exist, they can make the points. They can like do the math and see like, okay, this many yards, this many touchdowns, right? So basically, since like 1970, that's the 5th highest fantasy score. That's 52 years, and it's the 5th highest. Something that will not be seen for a long time. Could not be seen for the next 10 years, and it would make sense math-wise. Like, that's how unlikely it is. Super cool. Joe Mixon, that is my top moment of the fantasy football season, was that incredible performance. And it just set off, it set off my fantasy football season. It set off the Instagram. It set off everything. It was an awesome moment. So there's my top 5. It was a great fantasy football season. This is making me like sentimental looking back. I'm going to miss fantasy football. I'm going to miss it. The Broncos are out of the playoffs. I'm still going to watch football, but it's getting to be winter. I live in a place where we ski a lot, Football will kind of take a step back until the Super Bowl, and that's kind of sad because, man, what a season it was. I've already said my thank yous. Thank you again to everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stopping into the Instagram. I hope to continue, seeing the viewership as we get into the playoffs. I hope you guys keep listening. And then, obviously, when we get into the next season, it'll ramp back up. I still have some good ideas from the playoffs, so stick around for more. Go check out the other episodes. But for now, this is Mikey Andersen and the Fantasy Avenue Podcast signing off. See you next week. Peace out.